Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Libby chat. I'm live with Tina from Toronto Master Gardeners. Hello, Tina. Please,
Hi.
yes, yeah, hi. Hope you're having a great day. Please tell me a bit about yourself and about Toronto Master Gardeners, if you would.
I am a Toronto Master Gardener for almost 20 years now. The Master Gardeners are part of an international education organization. Our mission is to help the public learn good, sustainable gardening skills, both outside and inside. I myself, my specialty, I quite love houseplants, tropical plants, and big trees. I'm a sucker for big trees.
Awesome, awesome. You also have, I know we talked about this later in the during the launch party, which you joined us for, which was on October 1st. But tell me a little bit about your violet and cactus collection, if you would, because those are the two main characters in Libby. And then we'll talk a little bit about show me the collection.
Yes. Well, this is only a small part of the collection. So I'm fortunate enough to have a small greenhouse and I grow a lot of tropical plants. But here are some of the ones that I have started from seed, actually.
Beautiful. And what are they?
All sorts of, so equinox, and this is some sort of, I'm terrible at Latin names, which we all didn't know as Master Gardeners. But that one's kind of a, there we go.
Ah, yes.
Kind of Libby-like.
Yes, Libby-like, yep.
Yes. And different long rat-tailed cactus. I have a lot of succulents, which are part of the bigger part of the cactus family, and lots of African violets, which I also grow from leaves, actually, not seed.
Oh, wow, that's neat. Okay, later on we'll talk about how to grow your own cactus from seed. But we'll save that for a little bit.
Okay.
Let's talk a little bit about. I just wanted to know your thoughts on Libby, the Libivia Jajoyana, if you would, our book. So please, whatever you'd like to.
Well, it's very nice to read any kind of book about plants. And this one did a very, very good job of distinguishing between, because every plant, like every person, is quite unique and with unique characteristics that usually have evolved due to the environment that they live in. So it was lovely to read that.
Very, very cool. Oh, yes. And actually, let's talk about the backgrounds and the information that that you know about Libivia jajoyana and about African violets. And see, again, you talked about this during the launch. They're extremely different, and I didn't even consider quite to the extent how different they are, and it just makes the book even more appropriate, I think, for its themes. I mean, but I just sort of discovered the extent to which they are different, almost polar opposites, when you were discussing their backgrounds at the launch. So please, if you wouldn't mind redoing that presentation verbally, that would be terrific.
Sure. Okay. So they do come from very different areas. And what you want to do when you're growing houseplants is to know what their native habitat was like, because by their native habitat, that's where they're used to being. If we can replicate their native habitats in our homes, they'll be much happier, grow more successfully. So cactus, Libivia in particular, come from northern Argentina and Bolivia. So actually, Bolivia is an anagram of Libivia.
That's so neat.
On purpose. That's not a coincidence. It's on purpose. So if you can imagine kind of rocky, deserty, top of mountain, kind of like, if you've not been to Argentina, kind of like Mexico. The soil is not lush. There's no green trees. There's a few plants, mostly cactus or low growing kind of succulents. The only thing beautiful that stands out would be their flowers, which usually happen at night. The soil isn't very nutritious because it is quite rocky, and the nutrients aren't readily accessible to the roots of the cactus. By contrast, African violets come from Tanzania and Kenya at the top of the mountains. And it is very, very lush and very, very green and very, very rainforesty. So the African violets grow at the bottom underneath all these really tall trees.
Okay.
And they have the great big leaves that are nice, lots and lots of surface area so that they can try and collect as much light as possible that filters through, as well as moisture. Mm-hmm. That kind of thing. And lots of things are rotting. If you can imagine a damp, wet kind of soil, it's very, very peat mossy and full of all sorts of rotting things, which is perfect for adding nutrition to the soil. So they have a very, very easy time of getting lots of nutrition.
Right.
So they kind of developed their unique characteristics based on the environments that they came from. Mm-hmm. Cactus probably even more so, if you want me to go on about the really unique aspects of a cactus.
Yeah, and how they evolved for their environment and stuff like that. Yes, please.
Right. So many, 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 many years ago, cactus actually would have had leaves. They would have had leaves just like any other plant. And in fact, there's a couple of cactus that still have leaves. They're very rare and unusual, but they do kind of show us the evolutionary step of what they used to look like. Mm-hmm. So because they were growing in an environment that was so dry and so inhospitable, the leaves actually, over the course of time, became spines.
Yes. Yeah.
So basically a cactus is a stem and a spine, all the different spines. And the spines serve a lot of useful purposes. If there is any kind of condensation or weather, a little bit of rain, it will collect on the spines.
Yes.
They will collect that because they increase the surface area, and they'll actually slowly drip right down into the soil surface so that the cactus would get more water than the area around it. Most of them are kind of wrinkly like this, like they've got ridges in them. Mm-hmm. So they're like a sponge. So when the water is low, they can kind of sink a little bit, but then they can puff right out when they get a lot of rainfall. Okay. Typically in the desert where these grow northern Argentina, not much rain at all. And in fact, in the wintertime, they get very, very, very little rain. And in the summertime, they get most of the rain. So there's quite a bit of contrast, unlike the African violet, which has constant rain mostly all year round.
Right.
So other things that the spines do, they protect the plant from animals. Because if you live in the desert and you're an animal, you are always looking for water. And if you see something that's lovely and green, you want to come and eat it because you're going to get your moisture from there. And the spines protect it from that.
Right.
So, also, cactus tend to be quite tough. The skin, if you can get past the spines, the skin is very, very waxy, which of course helps to hold in the water. Whereas African violets, it's very easy to damage the leaves.
Is there a particular reason that African violets are fuzzy?
Well, it helps with the water.
Okay.
Collecting the water. Okay. Yeah, anything like that. And yeah, I would say water mostly. Yeah.
That's neat.
Yep, that's neat.
And that's something they evolved as well, sort of, or?
Yeah, every plant evolved to do something.
To do its thing.
Yeah. So.
But African violets didn't have such a hard time of it, I guess. Did they not have so much evolving, or?
You know what? They do. They were fine, but they were discovered in the late 19th century by actually a gentleman who has a very, very long name, but we'll just call him, his last name was St. Paul. So Violet's special name, like Libby,
yes.
I told you I'm not good at Latin.
That's okay.
Violets are St. Paulia, named after the gentleman that brought them back to Europe. And they didn't really have a tough time, but now they do, because now the area that they grow in native territory is being destroyed, and climate change and logging and all of that kind of thing. So they're actually endangered in their native habitat.
Right.
Yeah. The other interesting thing about them, though, they do flower all year round, whereas Libby maybe only maybe once a year, maybe a couple of times a year. It takes quite a bit longer to get a cactus to flower than an African violet, which will flower most of the time if it's happy.
Right.
Because they have a lot of flowers, they produce a lot of seeds, and they were actually taken into outer space.
Neat.
Yes, because NASA wanted to do studies on how plants would be different growing in outer space than they would be growing on Earth.
Right.
And they discovered that there were great differences. And when they brought the African violets back, they grew twice as many flowers and were twice as big. So you can actually buy, they continued to propagate them, so you can still get African violets that were one day their ancestors were in outer space. Yeah, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were extra. They were kind of extra in space, right? Like they like extra meaty. They did well.
They did very well. As I said, they came back. They usually African violets, you buy them in these 4-inch pots. And the ones that came back from outer space that they've now continued to propagate, they grow in the bigger pots because they are super sized.
That's how they're,
yeah.
That's how they improved in space, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, their temperature is fairly consistent all year round. And there's a little bit, they will flower if it's a little bit cooler at night, a little bit warmer in the daytime. Cactus, however, since they grow in the desert areas, it is quite cold at night. Like it can get down to almost freezing. So they really need the contrast of cold nights and warm, sunny days. And also you have to mimic watering in the desert. So I will stop watering my cactus in November, and I won't water them even once, probably until March or April. And only then can I hope to get flowers. They're not going to set out flowers till they're happy.
And does that go for pretty much generally all cacti, all types?
Generally all cactus, not all succulents.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Gotcha.
Yes.
All right.
Yeah.
Now, you mentioned there that about habitat destruction and climate change and so forth, so affecting violets in particular. I assume in general it's affecting all plant life because climate change is worldwide, and this is why we do not harvest these plants from the wild, correct? We get them from nurseries?
Absolutely correct.
Yeah.
Absolutely correct. That goes for all plants. Even growing native plants in our garden, there's a beautiful illustration in Libby of the garden.
Yes.
Even for our gardens, native plants, you need to get them from a reliable source. You cannot go out and just harvest them. Right. And oftentimes they won't grow because they're used to a certain set of conditions. And if you can't, which you can't replicate in your garden, so even if you harvest them, they will die.
Okay. Yeah. And houseplants in particular, obviously you don't put those in your garden because you need to.
Some plants like to go outside for the summer though. They like to summer vacation in your backyard. So some of your cactus would probably enjoy being outside as long as it didn't get too wet, right? Yeah. As long as it wasn't too cold and wet. Right. But a lot of the tropical plants that we try and grow inside our hibiscus and the mandevilla and some of our orchids, they really like being outside for the summer.
Okay, all right. But what about African violets, though? Do they?
You know what? I wouldn't put mine outside because they don't like hot sun. Right? Remember, they're used to growing under a canopy of big, tall trees.
Of course.
So, and also when you take them outside, you have to debug them when you come inside because a lot of bugs are, your plants had a good summer vacation outside. There's a lot of bugs looking for a good winter vacation inside your house. So
little stowaways.
Yes. Yeah. So I wouldn't put my African violets outside.
Okay. Well, so generally one gets their plants, whether they're house plants or garden plants, from a nursery or a florist or something like that. Now, please tell me, though, how one would raise a cactus from seed.
very, very easy. For most cactus, it's very easy. So you want to find a good, reliable seed source. And believe it or not, the internet, lots of stuff. There are cactus societies that sell seeds. There's very legitimate seed companies in Canada that will have a specialty pack of cactus. They have a little tiny section in their book on houseplants, and there's usually cactus mix there. Okay. So get your seeds. I don't happen to have any in packaged cactus seeds, but I do have a seed package. Okay. And always when you get your seed package, all the instructions for planting are on the back. It will tell you exactly how to plant them and how long it will take before they germinate. Okay. So my favorite place to start seeds is in recycling. So if you can find a little something like this that you had your chicken or your croissant in, it's good recycling, and it is actually a little mini greenhouse. Nice. So the other thing you want to make sure is that you have really, really good soil to start with. So soilless mix is what we call it, and it's a mixture of peat moss with a little bit of organic, and the white stuff is actually lava rock, perlite. Okay. So it's a lovely, light, moist soil. It holds moisture, but it lets oxygen get to the roots, which is very, very important. Right. And even though we said that cactus are desert plants and they're not used to a lot of rain, they really do need this high humidity to start growing. Okay. Yeah, it'll grow a lot faster if you can provide it with the humidity. So plant the seed the way it said. Some of them you don't put any dirt over them. Some of them they need light to germinate. Some of them might need a little tiny bit of dirt over top. So you can do that. Then when they get to be bigger, this is some lettuce that I started the other day. When they get to be about big and they've got 2 sets of leaves, so it won't look like this when it's a baby. It comes out kind of more like a plant. Okay. Then you can take it out of this starter nursery and plant it into a pot, a little tiny pot to start with. Okay. It is so important that you have drainage holes. You cannot plant any house plant in any kind of pot unless it has drainage. Right. And unfortunately, a lot of the times when we buy cactus or we buy succulents or any house plants, we're buying them because they look pretty. They come in some sort of decorative pot that does not have drainage. So you'll water it, and then a week later you'll come back and you'll touch it. It's like, oh, this is really dry, and you water it again, but all the water's sitting at the bottom. And the roots are going to rot, and you're going to have a very unhappy cactus or house plant. Okay. Well, so very, very easy and a lot of fun to start cactus from seed. Excellent. Thank you so much for that. And thank you for chatting with me today. I'm just going to take a moment before we wrap up to announce the winner of today's prize, which happens to be I believe it is a copy of Gordon Bagshaw's Frodo the Sheltie trilogy and a copy of Libby the Libivia Jajoyena. So the winner today is, drumroll, the Instagram name is the Smoking Glass Literary Bar. And apparently that is authoress J.Z. Luciano. So congratulations, authoress J.Z. You are the winner today. And thank you for liking and sharing our posts for Libby's launch contest. And Tena, thank you so much for all that cool information and for being here with me today and chatting. Thank you so much for having me. I love any opportunity to talk about plants. And do visit us on the Toronto Master Gardener website. We have lots of information there, and you can ask questions 365 days a year and get an answer for free. That's great. And I will also put the link to Toronto Master Gardener in the chat, or in the comments section, I should say. All right, thank you again, Tena. Thanks so much.